Okay, thank you everyone. My name is Derek Fang. I'm currently a cybersecurity analyst at FactSet on the product and application security team. So today, for my talk, we'll be talking about from start line to security finish, running your application security program like a marathon. So first, I wanted to introduce my colleagues who've contributed to this presentation. First up, Michael Shin. He's the interim CISO at FactSet. He completed 7 marathons. He's a Boston Marathon qualifier. He's got 18 years of experience in AppSec. We're also part of the OWASP San Antonio chapter. My manager, Sandeep Kumar Singh, he's the director of product and application security at FactSet. Has over 19 years of experience in AppSec and previously headed product security for McAfee. And then myself, as I mentioned, I'm an analyst at FactSet under the product and application security team. I'm obviously not a manager, but originally Michael and Sandeep were going to be here to give this talk. Unfortunately, due to some scheduling conflicts, they weren't able to make it, so they've asked me to present their talk on their behalf. As you can see, Michael is sort of the seed for this topic. He's the marathon runner. I do not run. I probably cannot complete a mile, if I'm being completely honest. But our goal here was to draw a comparison between what he's learned in marathon running and also his experience in application security. So first, I just want to mention all the images here are generated using ChatGPT. Trying to get around any of the branding stuff. So starting off with very generic quote, life is a marathon, not a sprint. I'm sure everybody's heard some variation of that at some point. It's even more applicable, I think, to security, given that security is an always changing and evolving landscape. So with that marathon mindset in mind, it's important to mentally prepare. Marathon running, of course, demands rigorous mental preparation to overcome those physical and psychological challenges. In the same way, application security professionals need to prepare to tackle complex and evolving threats. Part of that is having a positive mindset and not getting too stuck on the negatives and the failures. So having that motivation and continuing to have that motivation throughout the program is important, both for marathon running and for running an application security program. Mental toughness for long-term goals. So persistence is the essence of marathon running. Training consistently over months for single events or events in the future. In the same way, building an application security program requires long-term dedication and consistent effort, not just from security professionals, but from the organization as a whole. So first, Michael wanted to share a story actually about his own experiences. So here in the images you can see he wanted to share a story about how his wife also started marathon running recently. And when she first started, she was only able to run for 1 minute and had to walk for the next 4 minutes. And she would do this for 30 minutes and could not complete the marathon. But after a few years of training and dedication and practicing, she was actually able to complete a full marathon and is now a Boston Marathon qualifier for 2025. So in the same way, overcoming those self-doubts and mental barriers and thinking about everybody starts somewhere. In the same way, application security teams, when you're first starting out, it's not going to be, you're not going to have immediate confidence. You're not going to have immediately secure organization or products. So everybody starts somewhere, and what's important is making that start. So for runners, mental barriers include like fear of failure, injury, not achieving your personal best. AppSec professionals might doubt their own ability to fend off those threats or recover from breaches. And a big part of that is building confidence, not being afraid to fail, So that confidence only grows with preparation, training, and keeping in mind your minor successes, your short-term goals. So runners, of course, they build that confidence through their own training, through overcoming those smaller races, those smaller steps. And AppSec teams build that confidence through training, fixing vulnerabilities, taking those small wins, and building up those small wins into their long-term goals. So first, a key point for both is realistic goal setting. So having achievable goals is important because if your goals are inachievable, then it could lead to having achievable goals is important to have realistic standards and also set those standards for your team and also for your organization. So differentiating between short-term goals and long-term goals is also important. Your long-term goals could include maybe a SOC 2 compliance or having general secure environment for your organization. Short-term goals could be passing an upcoming security audit or fixing some vulnerabilities that you've just found in your product. In the same way, setting realistic goals for marathon training, it wouldn't be realistic of me to say, tomorrow I want to go and finish a marathon when I can barely probably complete a mile, maybe 2 miles. So in that same way, setting those expectations for your team, for yourself, and also for your organization, upper management, having those realistic goals is important so we can set expectations properly. And I also wanted to mention that OWASP has several resources here that can help set your expectations and also provide some sort of starting point in terms of where you want to reach. So long-term vision, in terms of overall success, these are your far goals, your overreaching goals. So it's important to set these to have a general direction that you can target your short-term goals to. So for running, an example that Michael has is considered what they call the 6 stars medal. So these are the 6 world major marathons, I believe they're called, or world marathon majors, which include the marathons at Tokyo, Boston, London, Berlin, Chicago, and New York City. So these are considered the, I guess, most famous marathons, and many people's goals in marathon running is to complete at least one of these marathons. But a lot of people actually take it further in completing all 6, and so they can get this medal called the 6 stars medal. So in terms of AppSec, some long-term goals could be building a secure application environment or increasing your security maturity for the organization as a whole. And it's important to have those long-term goals in order to align your short-term actions and also have a way to periodically review your current progress and status and adjust to meet those long-term goals. So like I said, breaking down those long-term goals into actionable short-term targets is also important. It helps to maintain your progress and momentum. Some examples of short-term goals could be completing 1 mile for myself, could be completing a single marathon or completing a local race, could be completing weekly mileage targets. In AppSec, it could be completing security audit or perhaps focusing on one specific product for your organization first and building that into a secure environment. Short-term targets are important to help you track and measure your progress. If we have one long-term overarching goal, then and that's all we are working towards, then it's hard to measure your progress towards that goal, and also could be demotivating as it feels so far out of reach. So importantly for your organization and for your AppSec teams is celebrating your short-term wins. One way we do that is we make sure we acknowledge within our teams when people make measured progress, when we've completed certain tasks or when we've completed certain goals, short-term goals, and also for developers, when we have when we've collaborated with our developers and worked with them to improve our products. And also we see some dedication from them as well, making sure we celebrate those through blog posts or awards or maybe prizes. I see something common happening right now is gamifying a lot of things. So having those sort of targets that they can reach in order to celebrate those short-term wins. So essential tools and techniques. So it's important to have the right tools and also have effective tools and knowing how to use those. So in the running side, actually this one kind of surprised me at first when I was talking to Michael. From my own ignorance, it was kind of, I thought you just need some running shoes and you're good. And you can go outside and run a marathon. But I was actually made aware that for marathon running, there's all kinds of gear that you need. Running shoes, running apparel, shirts, shorts, your socks are all running socks, and accessories like your tracking and monitoring, like maybe a watch or a ring that you can use to track your heart rate or your pace, your distance. In the same way, AppSec has many tools. I'm sure we're all aware, they're open source or maybe from vendors or paid solutions. There's many tools out there that do different things, can accomplish different things, and also have different features. So it's important to think about, from an organization's perspective, which tools are right for you, not just feature-wise, but also maybe cost-wise. So, for example, comparison between two running shoes. The first one is lightweight, carbon fiber plate, responsive foam. It's designed for speed, performance, peak, but it may not have the best durability. Michael was telling me that some of his shoes he only uses for 1 or 2 races, and then he has to throw them away. Second option would be something that's a little bit more durable, more cushioned, has some more comfort, and can last many training sessions. So having both, but maybe also having to pick between the two is something that you need to consider. And in the same way, for AppSec, there's so many tools available, so it's important to think about what your organization needs, perhaps first, in prioritizing those tools, and also what fits your organization's budget. That's a big one. You may not be able to have the most featureful tool, and maybe those features may not be needed for your organization. It's important to think about that when planning that purchase. So some training methodologies. So this one we kind of wanted to relate some marathon training methodologies and also some security methodologies. So for marathon training, we have like periodization, so dividing into the distinct phases. Interval training, which is alternating periods of high intensity and low intensity. Long runs, extended distance runs, so typically once a week at a slower pace. Cross training, so that's training other things other than running, cycling, swimming, that can complement your training. And most importantly, recovery and rest. Having those days or those times, those periods of low intensity where you can recover your body and also your mind. In the same way, AppSec has several methodologies to improve your overall posture. The secure development lifecycle, so integrating those practices into each phase of the software development lifecycle. That's the shift left that everybody loves. Threat modeling, so identifying and assessing security threats early in the development process rather than having it being caught later and having to maybe halt development or act as a blocker. Continuous integration and continuous deployment, so automating the integration and deployment process. So having as much of that automated as possible can ensure more adoption. And then regular audits, penetration testing, so having those periodic reviews, simulated attacks to identify and address weaknesses. That kind of goes along with threat modeling. And also important is security awareness trainings. So educating not only developers, not only your security team, but also staff, upper management on security best practices and emerging threats. This is important to have security in everybody's mind in the organization. It's not something that they just come to at the very end of the development life cycle. It's something we want to, like again, shift left and have that in everybody's mind from the beginning. So one other metaphor, I guess you can say, that I wanted to bring up was, for example, marathon prep and threat modeling. So for marathon preparation, each marathon is different, right? If we're preparing for the marathon in Tokyo or versus the marathon in Boston, the environment, the weather, the conditions, elevation change during the race itself is all different. And so it's important to identify those threats, you could say, and work on mitigating those during your preparation and during your training. So for example, if you're running a race in Houston upcoming, then you would prepare that differently from a race that you're running up in Washington. Houston would be humid, relatively flat, probably extremely hot. I don't know if anybody else is from Texas. That's where I'm from. It's extremely hot. And then Washington, a little bit more temperate, more elevation change, and the environment is overall, I think, a little bit better. So having that in mind and can help you plan and train properly for that race. Maybe you need to incorporate elevation change in your training, or maybe you need to try and tailor your training to specific times of day to accommodate for the weather. In the same way, AppSec, your products, your organizations are all different. So identifying your specific goals, the assets, what you're trying to protect for each product and for each organization is important to identify the potential threats that you could have, and in turn work towards mitigating those and creating those short-term goals or long-term goals for mitigating those. And this process is continuous. For marathon running, your next race, you'll have to do this again, or the same race, maybe it's a different time of the year. For AppSec, the threat landscape is always changing. And there's always something new coming out, especially with what we were talking about during the keynote. There's AI now. There's when new things come into the scene, we need to keep reiterating this process. So another important aspect for both marathon running and AppSec is continuous monitoring. So for running, monitoring helps to understand your performance trends and also make sure you can make necessary adjustments to avoid injuries or overtraining. You want to monitor your body. In this case, your body, you could say, is your product or your organization. You want to monitor your status, your pace, your heart rate, these things not only during the race, but also trends overall to understand where are you improving or where are you lacking, where do you need practice, where do you need improvement. In the same way, AppSec, of course, continuously monitoring our organizations, our products for threats in order to mitigate those as fast as possible, but also have an understanding of where are you being targeted. What is the highest risk to your organization or product? And that will help you ensure your security posture is up to date and also help guide you in those short-term and long-term goals. So use of tools and metrics for that monitoring. In running, we have the wearables that I mentioned. There's some brands here, but they can track heart rate, distance, pace, even oxygen levels. So when you're in the middle of the race, you can determine, I am a little bit behind, I need to speed up to reach my goal. In the same way, AppSec has many CI/CD tools and automated security tools, SAST, DAST, SCA. that you can use to collect those metrics like your vulnerability density, time to remediate vulnerabilities, your SLA ratio. Having that data is important in order to set those short-term goals and adjust those goals on the fly. And of course, it's also important when reporting to upper management. So adaptation and evolution. So the importance of being flexible, I think a lot of people say staying agile or agile is important. For running wise, when you're in the middle of the race, the weather could change. You might need to adjust your clothing or your hydration or adjusting your pace. And your terrain as well could change throughout the race depending on how they've pathed it. So modifying your stride and also tailoring your training beforehand to build that strength and endurance. If you find that half of the race is on gravel or half of the race is in dirt, then you might need to adjust your training to account for that. In the same way, AppSec, we need to be able to adapt to emerging threats, like I mentioned before, like new malware or zero-day attacks. So making sure we're staying aware and we're learning about that. We're staying cognizant of those new threats being in the news. So updating your security measures, policies, and tools in order to counter those. And also regulatory changes in the same way, being up to date with those like GDPR or like the CCPA, being able to adapt to those compliance strategies and ensure that the organizations are compliant with all of the legal requirements there. Techniques for staying agile and responsive. So for marathon running wise, flexibility in training schedules, being able to have the mentality that you don't need to train every single day, or you don't need to stick to your schedule exactly. So being able to accommodate for unexpected events, injuries, or maybe you're just not feeling very well that day, or perhaps you have a conference you need to attend, you cannot train. Being able to adjust your goals based on that, on those varying schedules and based on your performance feedback and recovery status is important for the long term. So not being too focused on that short term and maybe some failures or maybe some setbacks that you're experiencing, but adjusting on the fly in order to achieve those long terms. In the same way, in the AppSec space, implementing agile security practices to ensure security measures evolve with development cycles. So again, staying mobile and staying agile to adjust for any changes in the landscape and also changes organization-wise. Being able to stay mobile or agile so you can rapidly respond to incidents is also important. So having one important aspect of that is having those incident response plans and having those plans in place, so when there is a breach or when there is a security finding, you have that plan in place and people are not panicking or scrambling to recover from that. So some common pitfalls we wanted to talk about for both marathon running and AppSec programs. So common pitfalls, of course, there are recurring mistakes or issues that can derail progress or negatively impact performance. Awareness is the first step towards prevention. So being aware of potential or common pitfalls within your organization or within your industry is very important. So depending on the industry your company is part of, it could be your threats and the threat landscape could be very different. So it's important to address those beforehand and have proactive measures before they become problematic. That also helps maintain consistent performance and prevent potential setbacks. Some examples of this running-wise, this could be overtraining. So overtraining, if you push a little bit too hard or push a little bit too long and go too long without rest, then that could lead to fatigue or injuries and could even decrease performance. So it's important, like I mentioned before, to have those rest days or have those low intensity times planned in. And in the same way, in the security side, managing team burnout or overloading So management should be cautious in taking in too much work or too much responsibility to prevent overburdening the team. And that's where having those realistic goals is important. So making sure those goals and tasks are aligned with your available resources, and communicating that with your management so expectations are set. Another important thing here is looping back to investing in the right tools. So the correct tooling can definitely help with preventing that burnout or preventing the overburdening. So there are many, many tools available out there that have already been vetted. OWASP has many resources or many references with tools or open source tools that could assist and help automate processes. So trying to automate processes as much as possible. Trying not to reinvent the wheel with your team is also important. There are people that have been doing this for a long time and have that knowledge already that you can utilize. And going along with that, a collaboration and knowledge sharing. So the role of community and collaboration in marathon training, providing emotional support for each other, shared knowledge and experiences. Michael wanted to mention that he runs with a group in San Antonio of about 20 plus people. And running with that group every week helps apply that positive peer pressure and have some accountability for each other, and also develops that competitive spirit. And of course, you can create those social connections. And importantly, it's also the knowledge sharing. So out of those 20 plus people, some might be brand new, some might be veterans who have run many, many marathons in the past. In the same way, AppSec teams, if your team is just starting out or if it's a relatively new organization, having that collaboration between other organizations, or maybe collaboration just within your organization, is also important, because there are people that have more experience and that have gone through this before in the past. So techniques for fostering that cross-team collaboration, conferences like this OWASP Global Conference, Security Champion Program within your organization is also something that we've seen success with. So developing those security champions through your developers and increasing the collaboration between the security team, the developers, and also management in that aspect. Your local security chapters. So OWASP has chapters all over the world that you can participate in, and there, you can share your knowledge with others and also learn from others. And also, OWASP has many open source projects. Again, they talked about this during the opening. A lot of it is just volunteers from everyone in the industry, trying to share their knowledge and increase the security landscape as a whole. And here, I wanted to share a quote by Bill Rogers. The journey is just as important as the destination, so enjoy every step of the way. Bill Rogers is considered one of the top marathon runners, if not the best marathon runners. He had several records for completing, I think it was 4 Boston marathons and 4, I forgot the other location, but he's widely considered one of the best marathon runners in the world. And so his message was the journey to get to that destination, to complete that race, the training, the preparation is just as important. So enjoying the process as well. Having that sustained motivation and continuous learning mindset is important, both for your sanity, essentially, but also support from the rest of the organization. Resilience, so learning from mistakes and not getting discouraged, that can help both develop your own strengths and making sure to keep the workforce motivated. Again, that's looping back to celebrating those short-term goals or celebrating those short-term wins. Building those stronger relationships, not just between organizations or between security members, but also between security and developers. Of course, having that trust both ways, and that developers can come to us when they need assistance, and we can trust the developers to have security in mind. Another relationship is, of course, security and upper management. Having the support from the top down is extremely important. If we're fighting an uphill battle the entire time, then it will definitely be a struggle. So building that trust relationship between your security team and your upper management, or maybe your board, is very important as well. One important mindset we wanted to talk about there is having that collaborative versus non-collaborative mindset. So when engineers or developers are coming to you, or when you're maybe performing security review and reporting on vulnerabilities, having that mindset of you need to fix this, do this to fix that, versus this is why this is an issue, and this is what you need, and this is why this is vulnerable. Having that teaching mindset towards your developers is also important, because it can help change their mindset towards security. Instead of thinking, this was going to get reported, or this will get flagged by security, this will be a blocker. Instead, they'll think proactively and think, this will be an impact to our product, this will impact our organization. I need to think about this first and address this first. So all of this is about developing a positive mindset towards security. So cultivating that positive outlook, just not only for the security team, but also the organization as a whole. Some other practical strategies could be setting personal milestones. So again, breaking down those large goals into smaller, manageable milestones. Engaging with the community, so joining, for marathon running, joining your running clubs, local running clubs, or security-wise, joining some professional AppSec groups, or like the OWASP chapters, or participating in these conferences. Varying your routine, so mixing up your activities to keep things interesting. Running-wise, training in different aspects. Security-wise, maybe moving towards maybe a GRC perspective versus a pen testing perspective can help vary your routine and maybe keep your interest. And then mindfulness and presence. Don't focus too much on the long term. Don't focus too much on your goals, but focus on being present and in the moment. So some key takeaways we wanted. So everybody starts somewhere. Again, anybody can run a marathon. Anybody can run an application security program, as long as you have the right mindset and the right preparation. Having those realistic goals and concrete plans is essential for that. So setting those goals so that they're achievable, and also that your organization has the proper expectations. And of course, enjoying the process. Enjoying the process and having fun can make the journey more rewarding and ultimately lead to a more secure program. So in conclusion, running a marathon and managing a security team share many parallels. Both require mental toughness, continuous learning, setting proper goals, selecting the right tools, continuous monitoring, and a positive attitude and mindset. By applying these principles, we can reduce risk and achieve success in both fields. Thank you for your attention. Now I'd like to open the floor to any questions you may have.
First, thank you, Derek. Are there any questions? So we may kick off the questions then. So what do you yourself find personally the biggest challenge on the AppSec marathon?
What do I find as the biggest challenge in the AppSec marathon? I would say, from my current experience, would be collaboration. I think, especially with developers, because we have our job, we have our role, they have their job, they have their role. So developing that relationship with developers has been challenging, but in the end, it is very rewarding when you see the fruits of that labor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.